Shwmai a chroeso I Sgwrs, podlediad Consortiwm Canolbarth y De. Yn y podlediad hwn byddwch chi'n clywed y trafodaethau diweddara am bob math o bethau addysg. Hello and welcome to Sgwrs, the Central South Consortium podcast. In this podcast we'll bring you the very latest discussions on all things education.
I'm Darren Latham and I'm one of the art teachers at Penedray High School in Merthyr Tydfil.
As you already know, this week's edition of the CSC Expressive Arts podcast, you're going to be listening to a conversation I had with Darren Latham, and he's going to be talking all about animation. Now, Darren used to be a freelancer in animation. He's worked for the Arts Council of Wales, he's worked with primary schools, secondary schools, adults, he's worked with Upbeats Arts, he's worked with Storyopolis and various other arts organisations across East, West and South Wales. So if there's anybody we can listen to and get their advice and experience about animation, it's Darren.
Thank you for your time, Darren, and we're here specifically to talk to you about animation. Thinking ahead to the curriculum for Wales, where does animation sit in the new Expressive Arts AOLE? Is it art and design? Is it film and digital media? Or is it something else?
Well, I think it falls in any area because I think animation filmmaking is totally cross-curricular. It can go into any subject. So obviously I use it as an art and design tool, but there's no reason why someone in science couldn't use it, for instance, to show the digestive system. So they can quite easily illustrate that through film. History could use film and animation to maybe tell a story about the Second World War or Industrial Revolution, or liven up something that the kids might find a little bit bland and kind of not relating to their own experiences. So using film and animation to reenact, to show their understanding, and to explore ideas and concepts. So it falls in any subject area.
Thank you for that, Darren. And I think you've highlighted there how animation can be used not just within the expressive arts, but across other subjects areas as well, especially those schools that are looking to adopt creative learning through the arts approach to their curriculum. Thank you. So for those of us who do not know what animation is, could you briefly explain what is animation?
Animation is kind of moving inanimate objects and making them appear alive through using iPads, cameras, whatever kind of equipment you got. So how I do it is using bits of paper or plasticine or cardboard or whatever we decide to work with, and using a green screen background. So we've got an iPad set up above the piece of paper. We move our drawn character, which is probably cut up into little sections, jointed limbs. We move the leg and the arm and the head, take 3 shots. Again, repeat the process, move in it, take 3 shots. And then when you play it back on the app that you're using, the stop motion app, it will appear to be moving.
You're making this sound really easy, Darren, and it just makes me think about the skills teachers need to be able to use animation as part of their pedagogy, and also what resources they might need.
Plenty of apps that you can use on iPads and Android devices. I use something called I Can Animate, but there's Stop Motion Pro, and there are plenty of other apps that you can use. Most of them are free. You've got kind of light versions. They have their kind of restrictions, but schools can easily get those on their iPads. I use paid versions because in the long run they're worth investing in. So they're easily accessible. The actual techniques of animation are something you need to learn because there are rules to animating. Simple things like keeping the camera still, lighting, not having shadows, using green screen backgrounds. So there's quite a lot to learn and to teach the kids and for teachers to actually learn themselves.
Thinking about learner progression along the continuum of learning from 3 to 16, so across your junior schools and your secondary schools, and thinking about each individual learner making progress at appropriate pace, ensuring they're supported, are challenged accordingly, how easy is it to implement animation?
Well, it's really easy, and I've used animation from year 1 to year 13. The technical skills can get more advanced as you get old, you start working with the older kids. But with year one, they were able to manage to make a piece of plasticine move across the screen, look like it's come alive. And by the time we got to working with year 3 and 4, they were doing that, but then they were building on their skills by adding in backgrounds with green screens and sound effects and overlaying music. And then when you get to kind of like the age of GCSE, you can start telling stories with a narrative, writing scripts, creating the appropriate sound effects, narration, and creating the right kind of sets and backgrounds and making it more kind of advanced and professional looking. You can build on those skills, but it's really easy to do. All you need to have is time and space, really.
Given that most schools don't use animation, Darren, I think it's a really important principle to remind our listeners that refinement and growing sophistication in the use and application of animation is possible, that the opportunity to show progression through animation is there. However, is there the opportunity for learners to use animation at exam level?
Beyond year 9, if they were to choose GCSE Arts, animation can be used throughout their coursework portfolio and terminal exam. Because with GCSE Arts, you can basically use any technique and process and media that you want to create your artworks. I'm not sure, but I know there are elements of animation that can be used in ICT courses. I probably do it slightly differently to how I do it. Probably focusing on more kind of digital animation, animating stick figures and so on. But there is still room for animation to be developed within the curriculum, not just in art, but in all subjects, I think.
So learners can progress. What about developing their cross-curricular skills or their integral skills? Does animation have much scope for that?
Animation is basically telling stories. So you can improve children's oracy, you can improve their literacy just through writing scripts and narrating and being part of that animation process there. You've also got maths comes into it, looking at film rates and so on. There's kind of hand and eye coordination, which sounds pretty basic, but it's a skill that kids need to learn, especially from the earlier age. Then you've got all the aspects of learning the technical things, such as using lots of different apps together. So recording on one app, then taking into another app to do green screen, another app to do narration and sound effects, transferring things from one device to another. So taking something from an iPad and putting it onto a MacBook or a PC. So these are all kind of skills that kids need to learn, because they're forgetting these skills, because everything they do these days is all done on one device. So they're used to doing everything on an iPad or a phone, but then when they're asked to use another device, they've forgotten those skills, or they haven't got those skills. So when they leave school and they go into industry, they're going to be kind of, at a loss. So there's lots of skills that can be used and transferred, not necessarily because they're going to go off to be animators, but they can be used in other areas and aspects of their careers when they leave school and, their education.
It sounds like animation could play a big role in filling out the digital competency framework for expressive arts disciplines. So you've alluded to the fact that animation can offer many opportunities for learners to show progression, to develop cross-curricular and integral skills. But is there an opportunity for pupils to take animation beyond exam level and pursue a career here in South Wales?
Definitely. The pupils I've taught in the past have gone on to do foundation course in art, and from there on they've gone to do filmmaking and animation at colleges like the Atrium in Cardiff, where they do actual specific degrees in filmmaking and animation. And from there on, they've gone to work for major studios like Leica in America, who did things like Paranorman, Coraline, Kubo and the Two Strings. Gone to work for Aardman Animation over in Bristol. There are plenty of animation studios in South Wales. I think there's more animation studios in South Wales and South West of England than there are in London. Okay, so there are plenty of studios where they could probably get some experience and work from there. A lot of animators and filmmakers work from home these days, either as freelancers or working for companies, but they actually do it in their sheds or their attics or their bedrooms. You've got people like Netflix and BBC and ITV who use South Wales now for a lot of their film work. For instance, his Dark Materials, Doctor Who, Casualty, they're all major things. They filmed The Crown for Netflix here. And then you've got things like Sex Education, which is filmed down in Cullinan. And Fox TV filmed their new version of War of the Worlds in Cardiff and Newport. So it's there on your doorstep. I mean, they were filming recently in Blaenavon, up here in Merthyr. They've been filming Doctor Who and things. So it's on our doorstep all the time. So it's definitely a career prospect for our kids in South East Wales, definitely. I mean, obviously things are slightly skewed at the moment with COVID, but things will get back to normal. And I think what we've realised for instance, I phoned my bank and my insurance, car insurance recently, and I'm speaking to someone who's in their kitchen. Because they warned me, you might hear my dog in the background or something, please ignore it, we're working from home. And the same is happening in the creative industries because of how technology has progressed. We don't need to have massive studios. Obviously, you need them for things like big shoots where you're using models and sets. But a lot of the work, for instance, Game of Thrones, all the special effects were done in a terraced house in Belfast. So, yeah, you can have a job, and I know you can because lots of kids that I've taught in the past work from home now as illustrators, graphic designers, and animators from their bedrooms.
What impact does using animation have?
I'm thinking that some of the kids that I've taught animation have used it. Some of them being dyslexic, so they shied away from writing. They got lovely ideas, they got things to say, but felt they couldn't say it because of the dyslexia, and they needed an outlet to say things, to express their ideas. And animation was their saving grace. They could say things and they could express their ideas and tell the stories they wanted to tell visually. And they could also use their own voice or get someone to tell their story by narrating over their animations. So that's one, major effect. But I think getting the equipment out and the magic of animation, seeing those kids' eyes light up when they come in all kind of surly, what's this? They'll be all the hard man. You put them in front of the iPad, you help them make a character, or even if you just give them a ball of plasticine, and then they can see that object that they got under the camera coming alive by animating it. It's like any other kid, their eyes just light up with wonderment. It doesn't matter we're in the 21st century and they used to green screen Incredible Hulks. They've seen their ball of plasticine just move and come alive. And they're totally engaged, they're totally motivated. Any behavioural issues, usually you just don't see because they're totally in the moment doing what they're doing. So even if it's just for that, it's worth doing, getting them on board. I've seen I've been warned by teachers in the past, or that pupil there, watch him. I don't think he's going to take to this. And I thought, okay, we'll give him a go. And they probably turned out to be the best kid in the class for that particular task. So yeah, it engages them, it motivates them, and it opens their minds and their eyes to new ways of working and new experiences that they never thought they could, achieve. When we're working on the iPads, it's usually 2 or 3 kids to an iPad. So the iPad is held on a stand, and you've got one kid, kind of like the director. You've got the other kid who's doing the actual animation, and then another one kind of filming it. So the 3 of them are working together. So social skills are built on there, and teamwork, and having assigned roles and sharing those roles, because obviously you don't want to keep them doing the same thing for an hour. So they swap over, and it brings kids together. Because when I've done it in the past in primary schools and secondary schools, I've deliberately put kids together who were not friends, to kind of build on the social skills, and it works.
You've reminded me there of the importance of having enjoyment in the subject to plan lessons effectively, not just for outcomes that are measurable, but for the impact it has on health and well-being and the overall satisfaction a learner gains from being in your classroom. And that is so crucial. And coming out of COVID, coming out of lockdown, that's probably going to be even more crucial as we move forward. You've given schools many reasons to adopt animation as part of their curriculum. Thanks, Darren. But what do they need to do to get the ball rolling?
invest in equipment and invest in equipment that you've got. You don't need to buy new fancy things. If you've got iPads in your school, you can do it. All you need to do is invest in buying the app. And that could cost, £5? Or nothing if you're buying the free versions. So invest in that, and then invest in the time and to kind of train yourself and explore. And don't worry about having the most brilliant animation ever. Just play with it, experiment with it, and don't worry about the outcomes. Just get used to using it and playing with it, and your outcomes will be good, because you'll soon kind of develop the idea of how to do it and what you expect from it. So yeah, just play, invest in time, invest in the app, and don't worry about making mistakes, and explore and experiment. And if you've got an idea, what would happen if I did this? Do it, The other thing is, it hasn't got to just be for the art department. I've done a lot of animation in primary schools, and it's, as I said, it's totally cross-curricular. Any subject can use it for kids to show their understanding of the subject and explain the subject that they've been learning about. So everyone have a go at it.
You've drawn our attention to collaboration, pupils collaborating together. Do you collaborate with other departments, other teachers, other organisations, with your SLT even, or do you work in isolation?
I'm certainly not working in isolation in this school. I've done a lot of work with the Welsh department. We recently animated the Welsh National Anthem, which was great. We had that was across the year group, so years 7, 8 and 9 all contributed to animating that, just by making the characters, animating someone like Tom Jones talking, or Shirley Bassey waving her arms, making the backgrounds for the hills and the valleys. And they loved that. We made a lockdown animation with year 7, and some year 8s also narrated over it. So that's been an ongoing thing since September. And I know a lot of other departments are interested in doing some animation and filmmaking, so certainly not in isolation. But the great thing about Pendray is this is a school that lets teachers explore and develop not only their own skills, but skills of the pupils. And if we have ideas, we're allowed to go ahead and do it. If it's an idea, that's worthy. And I think, any idea is worthy, really. So we are massively well supported by our SLT here, who are creative and forward-thinking themselves. So that's great. And on top of that, we got fantastic kids who want to learn, who want to do new things and have new experiences. So it's just a great creative environment. And I'm so lucky to be working in the art department that I am. I've got 2 very creative people that I work with, Francis and Adam, who've both got their own skill sets and are willing to learn new things as well. I'm willing, obviously I'm learning new things from them, even though I've been teaching for over 20 odd years. And it's such a creative and supportive environment in this school. I'm really, really lucky to be here. Well, something I've done here now, I've set up a Google Classroom, which is a simple thing to do. And we're all fed up with Google Classroom, I know. But I set up a Google Classroom for the staff. So I put on little how-to videos sharing my expertise and my ideas, but obviously welcome for contributions from other members of staff who can add to my animation and filmmaking Google Classroom. So that's been taken on by quite a few staff who are interested in what I do and wanted to do it in their own subject areas. But we don't have that luxury, and this is what I think we need to have, is the luxury of going to other schools, other departments, and just seeing how other teachers do things. So I'd love it if someone else came and said, come and show me how to do animation. Can I come and see how you're doing it with year 7 or year 9 class, or whatever? I'm happy to do that, but I'd also like to go and see how they teach in other subjects. How do they teach, the Second World War, for instance, in history, and what could I learn about that, and how could I think about making that more creative? But I'd like to know what they're doing down the road in Cyfarthfa, what they're doing, in other schools in the surrounding area. We're really lucky here in Pendray because we got Adam. Now, Adam is basically an art teacher, but he supports the whole school on being creative. So, for instance, if science want to do something creative in this subject, they'll come to Adam and say, look, we want to do this. Or Welsh department will go and say, could you make a sculpture for of Mr. Earth or something? So we can promote Welsh, and how can we get a more creative approach in our speaking and listening and lessons. So he's coming in with lots of ideas, and I'm complementing that kind of thing now with my animation, with his skills in sculpture and drawing and so on. And we're lucky to have that. But I think every school needs to have someone like Adam in the school doing that. He's basically our walking new curriculum, and he's been here for a long time. And that, I think, is testament to the forward thinking of our school. So that's something we need to be thinking about as well. One of the projects I did recently was in Bedwas High School, where we did a project because they wanted someone to come in and teach about animation. But I incorporated it with history department and the Welsh department, because what we could do there was make an animation about the Welsh miners who went to fight in the Spanish Civil War. So the kids knew nothing about it. They didn't know about their own links in their own community, but Welsh miners in the 1930s who probably their family ancestors who worked in Bedwas Colliery, who went to fight, in northern Spain against the fascists. So we made an animation about that. So there's lots of subject areas. So, writing the script, the English and Welsh version that can come out of it, and obviously the learning the artistic skills. So when I did that, I brought in two artists, brought a printmaker and a collage artist in to help make backgrounds. So they learned lots of new art skills as well as the animation skills. And they've made a lovely animation about, the Spanish Civil War, something they knew nothing of, even heard about it. And now they've got good knowledge of that. So that's the kind of thing that I'm trying to do and have been trying to do. And I think encompasses the new curriculum.
And more. So thank you for your time, Darren. You've given us plenty to think about, loads of ideas about how we can incorporate animation into our expressive arts curriculum, how we can incorporate it across the school to develop a creative approach to learning. You've given us benefits of it, not just developing the discipline of animation, but wider skills, integral skills, collaboration skills, not just for learners, but for teachers and departments and schools. You've given us ideas, raised questions about professional learning. So if teachers want to learn more about animation, they need to raise those points with their schools, with the consortium, to get the opportunities to develop their own professional learning. Lots and lots and lots of really valid points and questions you've raised there. So thank you, Darren. Thank you very much. Apologies for the quality of this sound recording. I hope it didn't detract too much from the enjoyment and from what Darren had to offer you as a professional.
Diolch am wrando ar y benod hon o Sgwrs. Cofiwch ein dilyn ar Twitter a Facebook, tanysgrifio ein sianel YouTube, ymuno yn cymunedau ar ein gwefan a darllen ein bwletin ysgolion wythnosol am y newyddion diweddaraf. Thanks for listening to this episode of Sgwrs. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter and Facebook, subscribe to our YouTube channel, join our online communities via our website, and read our weekly school bulletin for the latest news. Hwyl am y tro. Bye for now.